transmission. 1954. Godzilla attacks Tokyo, leaving the city in ruins. Over 3,000 people are killed, and another 10,000 suffer moderate to severe injuries. The Japanese government secretly confides in the chemical weapon process accidentally discovered by Dr. W.K. Serizawa under the codename Oxygen Destroyer. The JSDF uses Serizawa's weapon and kills Godzilla. All records of the event are destroyed, and Dr. Serizawa's location is unknown. He is presumed dead. 1955. Tensions between the United States and the USSR rise as one side blames the other over who is to blame for Godzilla's attack. Both nations receive a massive boost of national pride. 1960. Richard Nixon defeats John F. Kennedy for president. Nixon uses his term, peace and prosperity, as his main policy foundation. His policies against communist aggression increases dramatically. 1961. South Vietnam falls to the Soviet Union-aided North. This further strains relations between the United States and the USSR. The Cuban Missile Crisis. As Soviet arms draw closer to the Cuban shores, President Nixon readies an all-out nuclear strike against the Soviet Union. The U.S. invades Cuba in retaliation of Soviet troops. Their first strikes were from the air, knocking out key missile defense mechanisms and anti-aircraft facilities. Soviet General Brezhnev then used the tactical nuclear missiles at his disposal on the invading American troops. General Taylor, despite his reservations, is ordered to launch a single nuclear attack on Cuba as a warning. This results in the first ever use of nuclear arms engaged in battle. Nixon, declaring his tactic known as Madman Theory, tries to bluff Premier Khrushchev that the United States is ready to launch its entire nuclear arsenal on Russia. At this time, the United States readies the single integrated operational plan and aims several missiles at key parts of Communist Empire, including Beijing, China, and Hanoi, Vietnam. Premier Khrushchev believes President Nixon's bluff, and both leaders sign a peace treaty in Geneva, Switzerland. Despite peace being achieved, relations between the United States and Soviet Union only grows more hostile. 1962. While exploring a broken ice shelf, Japanese researchers discover the remains of yet another Godzilla-like creature. This proves Dr. Kyohei Yamane's hypothesis of possibly other members of the species. 1963. While mining in the Philippines, a hidden cavern reveals multiple dinosaur carcasses. Dr. Yamane went on to say, they travel like the North American wolves. 1965. British and Australian forces begin their own experiments with nuclear fission on Bassin Island. They discover a way of producing twice as much power in a nuclear reactor while simultaneously using less energy. 1966. Known as the K1F8, this new nuclear power spreads fast in Japan and the United States. These reactors begin to replace gasoline as the key fuel source of power. 1967. The K1F8 facility on Bassin Island melts down. 1968. President Ronald Reagan sends Professor Raymond Connolly to commence research on Bassin Island. His discovery is another Godzilla-like creature inside a chamber underneath an active volcano. 1975. Soviet scientist Dr. Pavlov is handed massive amounts of funds on reducing food shortages. His objective? End world hunger. His experiments start slowly, but some progress is made using cows, pigs, and even vegetables. What these experiments involved is kept top secret. 1978 through 1980, tensions began to grow along the border between East and West Germany. America then invents the first of the ULT laser series. This weapon emits an electrically charged spray of plasma, similar to a heat beam. 1986. A magnetic seal is placed around Bassin Island for protection in the event of an all-out nuclear war between the USSR and the United States. The Chernobyl nuclear power plant in the Ukraine melts down. The radiation is detected as far away as France. With pressure mounting to contain the situation, the Soviet government tries desperately to cover up the incident. Dr. Pavlov's experiments, as well as the information concerning his work, is destroyed by the KGB. A statement is released that Dr. Ivan Pavlov was found dead of a heart attack in his Moscow chambers. If that was true or not is unknown. 1987. Most U.S. schools stopped teaching about the 1954 Godzilla attack on Tokyo in favor of, quote, more relevant and current events. 1988. The Soviet Union begins to collapse from a massive financial crash. 1991. The Soviet Union falls apart. However, the anti-American sentiments are felt by a huge chunk of the populace. Tensions remain extremely high. 1993. Indonesian fishing boats report the sighting of 5 15-meter-tall gorillas heading into the ocean. Local authorities launch an investigation, but no traces of these monsters are found. 1995. Updates on the New York City subway system discovers multiple Godzilla-like fossils from the same species. Archaeologists determine that this is a new form of Godzillasaurus, dubbed Godzilla giganticus. Archaeologists then determine these prehistoric monsters were social creatures very much like the velociraptors. 2001. The World Trade Center towers are destroyed in a terrorist attack. This results in yet another buildup of military power. The U.S. military invades both Iraq and Afghanistan. In the first U.S.-led war since 1961, thousands from all three nations are killed. 2015. Known as the Second Iraq-Iran War, the situation grows out of hand. The U.S. military might is forced to pull out of the Middle East. Many more are killed, and the United States receives its first military defeat in over 100 years. 2029. A meteor known as Flora collides with Earth, creating a massive tidal wave which destroys much of Hawaii as well as the American West Coast. Thousands are left dead and millions are left homeless. As reconstruction begins under command of General Kenneth Costa, a Japanese nuclear submarine transporting aid supplies for the United States disappears. An SOS signal is received by the American Coast Guard. The report contained the last words uttered by the ill-fated crew aboard the Japanese vessel. Sore wa Senaka. It's back. End transmission.